Hi, it's Renee, and yeah, and talk a little bit more about the Stringfellow acid pits. I've been doing a little bit more reading. There's a really good article in Harper's Magazine. It's like 1995, written by a guy named Jack Hitt. It's called Toxic Dreams, and it presents both sides of the story. So I'm going to break it up into a few parts. But something I did learn I didn't know before, that the Stringfellow acid pits, um, basically, Riverside County is behind LA County, and to draw industry here. um, the the city council said, we can attract people from LA. One industry we can do is waste. So that's when they started approaching Stringfellow, and we've already talked about that. But and we were very service oriented in our industry and waste with the Stringfellow acid pits, and they were unsupervised. They were given unsupervised dumping rights. There was a little sign left at the dump in the 70s, in the early part of the 70s, that if you want to do nighttime dumping, go for it. Just call this phone number at the Stringfellow acid pits, and you're more than welcome to dump any time of the day and any chemicals. And then they took away that number, and basically anybody was free to dump anything into the Stringfellow acid pits. And everybody operated on the honor code. That what they were putting in the pits was just and following regulation. So they were just on their word that they were dumping the correct things into the acid pits. And then in 1971, Stringfellow closed the pits because he feared that they were leaking, and he turned it over to the state. So the state was now owned the acid pits, and it was just left vacant. It wasn't even fenced. It was just this open space where there was acid in this ravine. So it wasn't protected at all. And so it was just left there. And from 1971 to 1978, things were relatively quiet. And then in 1978, California had these incredible rains. I wasn't here. I was running around somewhere in Colorado. But in 1978, they had these huge rains, and the acid pits started to rise. And the state feared that they were going to overflow. So instead of letting them overflow, they decided to release about 800,000 gallons of the chemicals into the water source. And I'm probably not being exact with that. They just kind of opened up the floodgates and let it just run. And so the acid mixed with the rainwater and ran into what is Glen Avon, the Glen Avon area of Riverside. And I've heard people talk about this, and John does remember this, that the water's coming down the gullies and everything. It looked like soap water. It had bubbles on top, and children even played all in the water and thought that foam was really funny, so they put it on their faces, and they had these big old foam beards, and that was hundreds of chemicals mixed in with the local water. So that happened in 1978. And that was the same year that the Love Canal happened. And that's really when this whole toxic waste became a household word. So, people were watching the toxic waste items on the news about the Love Canal, and they started saying, I wonder if what's going on here has something to do with toxic waste. And so they started asking questions, and they started to get a little bit organized. And there was a group that started to form, and they are still around. They go by a different name, and they are called the Concerned Neighbors in Action. And they were led by a woman by the name of Penny Newman. And they started asking questions like, what was in the acid pits? What are the ailments? People were showing up with rashes and different ailments. There's lots of cancer in that area now, but maybe I don't know about then, but there's lots of it now. But that group started asking questions, and the questions and the answers to those questions were not being given very fast. It was very slow. It was a bureaucratic nightmare. You ask a question at the front of the line, get told to get in the back of the line, and these citizens didn't stop asking questions. And then in 1980, they got even more organized and started. They had these shirts that started with like a wilting flower on it. And by 1985, there was a lawsuit that began to get into motion, and we'll discuss the both sides of the issue in later videos. So that's a little history on how the Stringfellow acid pits started to get involved with the citizens in this small part of Riverside County. And it was those rains in 1978. Some people do remember those because John would have been like 12 years old at the time, playing in that water and thinking, wow, this is amazing. We got soap in the water and we can do all sorts of fun stuff. And yeah, so thank you so much. There'll be more to follow.